Did you know there was almost a Metroid movie? The franchise was at its peak of popularity and acclaim after the launch of Metroid Prime in early 2003, and Retro Studios was hard at work making a sequel. Nintendo was developing Zero Mission and Metroid Prime Hunters, and they'd even contracted out a pinball game spin-off. The iron was piping hot, so Nintendo decided to go all out, and decided to make a Metroid movie too. They optioned out film rights to producers Warren Zide and Craig Perry, best known for the Final Destination movies and American Pie. The duo released a basic plot outline in January 2003, which read, "The story is set in a once peaceful galaxy, which has its prosperity shattered by a startling discovery. On a routine mapping expedition of a planet, a survey crew discovers a new airborne life form, the Metroid. Able to engulf other living beings, feed on their energy, and multiply in great numbers, they prove a terrifying menace. Female bounty hunter Samus Aran is commissioned by the Galactic Federation to eliminate the pests, but she soon discovers that pirates with a stolen Metroid specimen are plotting to breed and build an unstoppable army." Zide and Perry were actively looking for writers, actors, and a director, but their plans ultimately went nowhere, and their rights expired in 2004. That's when the rights got snapped up by John Woo, a much more accomplished producer, with greater enthusiasm for the project. Woo's penchant for Mexican standoffs, slow motion, and stylized action scenes known as gun fu made him one of Hong Kong's most influential filmmakers, and a huge inspiration for Hollywood movies like The Matrix, as well as anime like Cowboy Bebop. According to Foxhoven, a producer who worked alongside Woo, "We believed there was a great opportunity for John Woo to bring his style of action into a Metroid film." Nintendo was quite supportive of the idea, as they were all fans of John's previous films. Nintendo was definitely discouraged by the Super Mario Bros. Movie, but felt with John they would be in better hands. When the news broke, Foxhoven announced that they were looking to make Metroid into a big budget film, and not a quick cash grab. Samus's adventure would be fairly faithful to the games, and see her battling series staples like Mother Brain and the titular Metroids. John Woo was apparently pretty excited, telling The Hollywood Reporter, "This type of story has a proven track record of success with film audiences. We're very fortunate that there is such an extensive amount of material to draw upon for the film due to there being so many Metroid games over the years." Early script proposals focused on Samus's origin story, explaining who she was and what she did before she became the bounty hunter we know today. In an IGN interview, Foxhoven explained Samus was going to be exceptionally talented, but also very flawed, and looking for redemption. They wanted Samus to struggle, be humbled, and ultimately find it within herself to beat the odds, rather than come out the gate as some overpowered superhero. Woo's team hired several writers to provide guidance, most notably David Greenwald, who had experience writing strong female leads from his time on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. As for who'd play the starring role, it doesn't appear Woo ever nailed down a specific actress, but Retro Studios president Michael Kelbaugh knew just the woman for the job. In late 2004, Electronic Gaming Monthly asked Kelbaugh who should play Samus in the upcoming Woo movie, and he said, "We addressed this question a lot. The sex of Samus is irrelevant in the video games, and we've always liked that because it never played a role in the series. It's more of a surprise than anything else. Demi Moore kind of personifies that. It doesn't matter what's underneath the helmet way of thinking. She has always been my preference to play Samus." Presumably, he'd come to the conclusion after watching A Few Good Men, G.I. Jane, and other Demi Moore movies, where she played roles typically reserved for men, but was also capable of employing traditional feminine charms when a script called for it. In early 2004, John Woo announced the film was planned to hit theaters around Christmas 2005, so by the time summer of 2004 rolled around, rumors were swirling that the movie was on schedule and production had begun. But Nintendo's Yoshio Sakamoto dispelled those rumors in Japanese gaming magazine Nintendo Dream, saying that there hadn't actually been any progress, explaining, "There were some misleading reports before E3 that Metroid's production was confirmed. But to be accurate, it's that the company that John Woo works for has gained the rights to negotiate with Nintendo of America to make Metroid into a movie." Metroid's production hasn't officially been decided yet, and there's no release plans for it. And that's the devil in the details. The contract between Nintendo and John Woo, which was never made public, didn't give Woo the authority to make the movie however he wanted. It only gave him rights to make a movie which Nintendo approved of. The biggest impediment was Samus didn't have much of an established backstory to draw from, and a movie adaptation required much more fleshing out of both character and the universe. It seems there just wasn't enough material in the games to draw from, as Woo initially thought. His team spent 3 years just in the pre-production stages, trying to build a cohesive world and craft a story that would satisfy the Metroid fanbase and also appeal to the moviegoers who had been meeting Samus for the first time. And more importantly, the story had to gain Nintendo's approval. But according to Foxhoven, things started to go south when we tried to dig into the character a bit more. As you know, any film needs a deeper story arc than what's told in the game, where we learned about the characters and their world. What are they doing when they're not fighting? What is their daily existence and relationships? What are Samus's aspirations, history, and fears? Nintendo appreciated the questions but had never thought about them before, and ultimately didn't have a lot of answers. In the end, they felt uncomfortable with our team being the ones to propose those answers. Foxhoven went on to say they made it as far as treatment, which is the stage between the basic outline and the script's first draft. A treatment's usually between 10 and 40 pages, and details the narrative, setting, characters, themes, and particular scenes in order to secure authorization to move forward and write the full script. But after years of getting to that point, Wu's team realized they just couldn't come up with a satisfactory story that Nintendo would agree to. So, they were forced to abandon the project in 2007. Apparently, Nintendo wanted to tell Samus' story all on their own, so they started development on Metroid Other M later that same year. But when Other M released in 2010, the Metroid fanbase largely rejected that story. A few weeks later, Games Radar asked Other M's producer and director, Yoshio Sakamoto, if there was any hope a Metroid movie could still get made someday. He told them, specifically talking about storytelling of Other M and the visual quality of computer graphics, "I think we have used quite luxurious resources to create these movie sequences, and I think these scenes are worthy of the movie label. However, if you ask me if I want Samus' story to be told in cinemas, I really don't think so." However, if Mr. Ryuji Kitaura, the director of the CG cutscenes in Other M, wants to make a Metroid movie, and if the concept and methodologies he presents are agreeable with me, then I might be okay with the idea, but only if it's made by him. Fans haven't exactly been clamoring for Nintendo to make a full-length movie in the style of Other M, but there have been some interesting ideas from third parties in the decade since. Like in 2017, when the producer of the Netflix Castlevania series, Adi Shankar, said he'd like to make a quote-unquote Dark Metroid series, in the same anime style as Castlevania. Unfortunately though, Sakamoto publicly expressed a lack of enthusiasm for Shankar's proposal. In 2018, the director of the upcoming Metal Gear movie, Jordan Vogt-Roberts, told IGN he wanted to make a Metroid film in an isolationist style, saying, "It legitimately would be Samus alone. It would be a little bit of her talking to herself. As soon as they introduce other talking characters in those games, to me, it loses everything. You put her alone, and it's almost got more to do with the silence of a movie, like Drive, like the quietness, and having it be a real intense mood piece, but mixed with sci-fi. But Nintendo will never let me. It's too crazy." Apparently, it wasn't too crazy though, because Metroid Prime's senior designer, Mike Wicken, publicly supported the idea, even if Nintendo proper never acknowledged it. A few months later, Captain Marvel actress Brie Larson dressed as Zero Suit Samus for Halloween, and repeatedly expressed a desire to play Samus on the silver screen. And the following year, Metroid manga writer Izuki Kouji said he also supported a live-action film based on the series. Did you know there's a Metroid game that only released in Japan, and its elements were reused in Metroid Fusion, Zero Mission, Super Metroid, and even Metroid Prime 2? For more on that, click the video on screen. And if you like me, you like the sound of my voice, be sure to check out my YouTube channel, Pelvic Gaming. I talk a lot about JRPGs, but since we're talking about Metroid, check out my review on the indie Metroidvania game, Dandara. Thanks for watching!